We are African, and we happen to be in America. We're not American. We are people who formerly were Africans who were kidnapped and brought to America. Our forefathers weren't the Pilgrims. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us. We were brought here against our will. We were not brought here to be made citizens. We were not brought here to enjoy the constitutional gifts that they speak so beautifully about today. Because we weren't brought here to be made citizens today, now that we've become awakened to some degree and we begin to ask for those things which they say are supposedly for Americans, they look upon us with hostility and unfriendliness. If you're interested in freedom, you need some judo, you need some karate, you need all the things that will help you fight for freedom. Nationalism is the wave of the present and the future. It is nationalism that's bringing freedom to oppressed people all over the world. It was nationalism that brought freedom to the Algerians. It was nationalism that brought freedom to the Nigerians and to the Ghanaians. It was nationalism that brought freedom to the people of Uganda and Tanganyika and Sudan and Somaliland. The Africans didn't get it by sitting in. They didn't get it by waiting in. They didn't get it by singing "We Shall Overcome." They got it through nationalism. And you and I will get it through nationalism. What is it? What is it that makes it difficult for the philosophy of nationalism to spread among the so-called Negroes? Number one, they think they have a stake in America. They think they have an investment in this country, which we do. We invested 310 years of slave labor, 310 years, every day of which your and my mother and father worked for nothing. Not 8 hours a day. There was no union in that day. They worked from sun up until sundown, from can't see in the morning until can't see at night. They never had a day off. And on Sunday, they were allowed to sit down and sing about when they died, they wouldn't be slaves no more. When they died, they wouldn't be slaves no more. They'd go up in the sky, and every day would be Sunday. That's a shame. And it is that 310 years of slave labor that went in, that was my and your contribution into this particular economy and political system. They can give us the back pay. Let's join in. If this is what the Negro wants, let's join in. Let's show him how to struggle. Let's show him how to fight. Let's show him how to bring about a real revolution. Let's make him stop jiving.
Powerful, man. Powerful. That's a revolutionary.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, Leroy Baylor, and you're with
Books That Matter, People Who Matter.
Right, and you're also a Muslim.
Also a member of the Nation of Islam.
All right. So this is coming home. That was our early revolution. This was 60, must be 63?
64. It was in the 60s.
Right, early 60s.
And
that scared me, you know. That sort of talk, man. I was in the Corps at the time, so we didn't talk like that.
Roy Ennis?
Huh?
You in, oh,
I was in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
I was in the Marine Corps.
Not Corps, but the Marine Corps.
Marine Corps, well, we call it the Corps.
Well, I mean,
you know.
They had you...
brainwashed. Brainwashed. I was a warrior, man, for the USA. You're talking about change my name, not eating pork. But you and I were raised in the same era, so I went a different route, man. My dad had me so disciplined, I didn't understand this stuff, man. I wasn't revolutionary.
I mean, how many of us did understand that coming at that time?
Growing up in the 50s, yeah.
black consciousness. Well, we would entertain ourselves or be entertained by going down 125th Street at night and listening to the street corner speakers.
Right.
And you had Pork Chop Davis. And there was another brother, I can't call his name.
Reverend Kenyatta.
No, Kenyatta wasn't, he was in the Nation at that time. So he wasn't out there on the street.
I thought he was. I got pictures of him.
He was out there on the street, but not at that time.
Okay.
I'm talking about when we were coming up in the 50s.
Oh, the 50s.
We would go and we see Pork Chop Davis.
In the 50s?
In the 50s.
Oh, I don't even.
Pork Chop Davis and other speakers would be on 125th Street, yeah. And he would be sounding off against folks, and we'd stand there, and we would be, we'd be mesmerized by the facts he was dropping.
Wow.
Now, he's a story that hasn't really been told, but he lent his time and energy to the awakening of our people. And then we would disperse when he would ask for money. You just leave, but we come back the next night or the night after. We'd be uptown. We'd say, let's go downtown to listen to Pork Chop Davis.
What street were you on? What street were you from?
148th Street and 8th Avenue.
Okay.
And I played. I was one of the people who congregated in Harlem River Projects.
Okay.
David White, Donald Washington.
Polygram.
Donald Washington. No. The Harlem River Projects is right at 151st Street to 155th Street. Right at the small projects, one of the first projects built.
Okay.
And housing developments built in Harlem. Or in Manhattan in New York. And that's how we got our consciousness, but it wasn't a lasting consciousness. It was contrary to what we were. We went to Catholic school, whatnot, Resurrection, Cardinal Hayes, and we were,
Well, that was rebellious for a Catholic school kid.
Well, not really, because we ain't give them no money. You see? That might have been a sin. You understand? Venial sin. We weren't going to be guilty of that.
Wow.
But the fact is, the street corner, I mention that in context of Malcolm, because as I developed, Malcolm was one of those street corner speakers, but he had rallies. And you'll go down there and his street rallies, he'd be running it.
Wow.
And still, if they asked for money, you wouldn't give them no money. You couldn't. You weren't no Muslim. But the content, and the fearlessness. In Message to the Black Man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says the biggest enemy that black people have is fear. Fear of the slave master, fear of the slave master's children. So what you see in Malcolm was that natural DNA of us not having fear. Once you get a knowledge of who you are, you don't have fear anymore. It lessens. That level of fear goes down, down, down. Then as you mature in life, you have less fear based on your experiences. I'm talking about my personal.
Okay.
And then you have less fear by being around people like Malcolm, being around people like Minister Farrakhan, being around people like Captain Yusuf Shah, Macy Aziz. These are the men who I knew in the Nation, the lieutenants, Lieutenant Clarence 7X, Richard 8X out of Brooklyn, Minister Arthur. These are men.
And Wayne Grice was what?
Wayne and I, brother. Wayne, fantastic brother. Oh man, you laugh, and I'm laughing because Wayne would have you laughing.
Yeah,
you know,
he was
and at
funny.
the same time,
he was funny.
He switch up.
I was surprised he had gotten so serious.
Brother Wayne.
I know. I mean, I couldn't fathom that. I said, brother, what happened to you? You're my party buddy.
Party guy.
My party buddy.
High school.
With his cape.
That's right, cape and
Wayne and I were schoolmates in high school. G'd up, George Washington High School. We got out of I got out in '58, and I think Wayne was a year behind me because he was a year younger, I think. But Wayne was so radical. We're talking about the 50s now. And he wear capes, and we called him Batman.
That guy with that
and
cape,
with a bald head. And he was dark-skinned, but, you know, he had you couldn't intimidate him about anything. He would go anywhere. Matter of fact, in the 60s, early 60s, he starred in the first television series with Burt Reynolds as a detective.
First black in a drama.
First black in a drama. And this is a kid we went through, we goof and run after girls, and he wound up getting serious on this. So I knew him as a goof. I mean, not a goof, but, you know, we used to goof on things.
Yeah.
He was a lot of fun, man. When he got serious, didn't he?
And he was in the ministry class in the nation. He was in the ministry class. He was in other words, you had that group of brothers who petitioned or joined the ministry class, and they would either open up for Minister Farrakhan, Minister Louis X at that time, or they would teach on a particular day.
Did you go to the Sugar Bowl? You went to the Sugar Bowl, of course.
You know, Sugar Bowl.
Well, see, now, I was in the Sugar Bowl, 58, 59. January 1960, I joined the Marine Corps. I lost my job, and I couldn't go home because my father wouldn't have me not having a job, you know. And I'd worked all my life, you know. In those days, your dad, you know, you didn't stay idle. And I was paying the rent. 1959, I was making $60 a week, and I had to give him 10. And the rent was 40. So I was paying the rent. But I didn't mind because Jack was happy. I had a job. I started working when I was 13 without my working papers. Then they waited till I got my working papers, then officially gave me the job. But you know, we had to work in those days. Yeah, we had to.
Had to have something.
You had to do something.
Coming in.
You're going to live here for free.
That's right.
No matter what the rent was. And that basic principle, when he always taught me, whatever you do, be fair. And I carried it with me. And that was that era for us, you know? And that you know, pride in whatever you did, do it.
That's right.
If you're a street sweeper, be the best
That's right.
street sweeper.
That's right.
Take pride in whatever you do.
Yes.
And this was us as black people. I mean, that code, that self-pride, it was so beautiful back in the day. And Wayne was a classic example of it. You know, you goofy, he'd go out and goof, and he got downright serious. And when he popped up on television, I said, look, I'm a man.
That's right. Dedicated student of his craft. He and his wife, first wife, Sister Pearl, she was a dancer. And they had a great son. His name is Amir. Amir, Wayne, we did this commercial for Black Family Day in 1972, and we had written a commercial for a child to be talking to his dad. Happened to be a boy talking to his father about, did you hear about Black Family Day? You know, can we go, Daddy?
Yeah,
yeah.
And
that was the dialogue, and that was Amir, young Amir, in a commercial with his dad. I mean, it was Wayne was a tremendous teacher, and he made his transition in 2002, I think 2002. But the fact is, he had a class of folks, male and female, who he would teach, and this is after 75, after 75, yes, who he would teach. And it was in the spiritual side of life, building one's mind, building one's compassion towards one another. And I run into these people, and they have on occasion, and they what he dropped on them, what he shared with them, what he taught them, was that which saved a lot of their lives. This is what they say. If it wasn't for Brother Wayne, I wouldn't be alive. If it wasn't for Brother Wayne, my family would have crumbled. And
what happened to us?
What happened to the class?
What happened to black people in general? I think that
what has happened to black people?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about a mold because you and I are both 75 years old. So we're talking about an era that's past, and I think it was a mold that it was broken and never to exist again.
Well,
I mean, we don't have that standard in black pride.
Well, the fact of the matter is that black people have been in a war since we were brought to these shores.
Of course.
But we did not know it. We knew pressure.
We
but
knew
we
it.
Didn't.
Come on. We knew it.
Okay, look.
Back then, in the 50s, we knew it. But everybody wanted to be like us.
We were in a war, meaning a war has been waged against black people.
Right.
Black people do not know that. We experiences events, turnarounds, pushbacks, but we experience them, we've been experiencing them as individuals. What is happening in America now reminds me of the wind blowing on the bones. I think it's them bones and bones, dry bones. I'm not deep into the scripture, but it is a fact that the winds of oppression is becoming so dominant, and with a Pied Piper such as Trump on the scene, the winds, the opposition is so outward with their expressions of oppression. We're just people trying to live and live well. I'm talking about black people in America. We don't want your wife. We don't want your home. We'd like to have a home to live in, but the oppressors do not see that. It's like the man that shot the.
But do they recognize the oppressor? I mean, Donald Trump is a known bigot.
But we associate. We see him. We saw Giuliani. We saw Koch. We see Trump, but we don't see what they represent. Koch is gone, but his spirit is still here. Bratton is gone out of the police department, but his spirit is still there.
How about Bloomberg? How about Bloomberg?
Bloomberg, his spirit is still there. Here's a guy, not to get off, here's a guy that under his administration closed down vocational high schools.
Bloomberg.
Vocational high schools are less today than they were when he was vocational high schools.
That's right.
Where you learn, experiential learning.
Yeah.
Right? What has proliferated in its place? What has proliferated in its place are for-profit trade schools, where you go and you get a student loan, and the course is non-demanding. The instructor was here last week, but he's not here this week. You drop out, and you don't know that student loan follows you to the grave.
Yeah.
But this is the game that's going on. So when you talk about Bloomberg, I voted for Bloomberg the first time. You understand? So I'm not, quote, what they call, this black racist, and people can call me that. But I give everybody a shot. But the fact of the matter is we can only trust in ourselves today. And that's what the winds are doing. The winds are blowing on us to come together. The enemy is operating full time. I said we're in a war, but we have not been acting as, as a combatant in the war.
Okay.
Look at drugs. There's a book that came out. It's called Operation Gladio. Can't tell you the author, but it's a book from 2015. There are two books. The second book is written by a guy named Potash, P-O-T-A-S-H. And they talk about how drugs in Operation Gladio, they talk about how after World War II, they came up with a scheme for financing what turned out to be the CIA. After World War II, the wars ended, and they had these agents throughout Europe and other places, assets they call them today, that they needed to sustain. So how were you going to sustain that? And the war is over. There's no need to sustain them from a budgetary standpoint. So what they did, they came up with the idea of bringing in drugs.
Well, how did we survive?
How did we survive?
How did you and I survive?
By the grace of God.
But drugs were there. I had a half brother was a junkie. That was part of the reason why my father was so hard on me. You know?
There you go. He took one and left another one. I'm saying, talking about in terms of taking one and leaving another one. And I had the neighbor next door, the brother next door, he got in drugs. The brother upstairs, he got in drugs. The brother upstairs was Brother Charlie. The brother next door, I won't mention his name, but he was right next door. I come into the Nation of Islam. These were junkies.
What year? What year did you?
I came in
60s, right?
66 or 67.
Oh, you're way out. Oh, you came in.
Wayne was already in. Wayne and his wife were already in.
See, 1960 to 64, I was off on a different trip, man.
Oh.
I had.
But where are we at now?
But I came back in 64 and went to work for a bank. So I mean, I was wondering what you guys were doing. And then when Malcolm died in 65, I said, what happened there?
We were all doing the same thing, trying to live.
Oh, yeah.
We were all doing the same thing. You're not worried about, you know, there was brutality, you know, every once in a while. Gilligan, Gilligan was police who killed a boy on York Avenue, black boy.
Mm-hmm.
And said the boy had a knife. Well, they didn't find the knife until 2-3 weeks later in a sewer.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that was a famous shooting. Young boy, you know, high school boy, shot him in broad daylight. His friends was around. I'm almost certain the guy's name was Gilligan.
Mm-hmm.
But we were doing the same thing, trying to live, raising families, etc.
Yeah.
Going to school, going into jobs that, in fact, during that period, you're talking about affirmative action, which got many of us into positions that we have been blocked out of. And I counted at one time that
that didn't come to Nixon, really, in full-fledged.
No.
After Martin died.
You had affirmative action.
In the 60s?
You had pressure for blacks to get jobs while Johnson was in office.
Ah, right, Johnson, okay. After Kennedy, okay.
Because I know I was the recipient.
Okay.
I counted one time I had gotten into maybe 7 positions, affirmative action positions.
Wow.
Different companies.
Wow.
Furniture store in Harlem, I was going to be their first manager.
Right.
They had black staff, but I was going to be their first manager. That's what they said. They were right there on 116th Street. A bank, I was going to be their first manager. At a TV station, I was going to be their first salesman in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I was coming in today, and in 20 years, I'd be a salesman.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous. When I'm saying,
you have to work your way up.
But the point is,
Is that you, Doc?
Yes. So.
All right.
Yeah. Good.
Dr. Jeffries is on time. This one. Now this is Keith Scott, and with all the uproar in Charleston, North Carolina, you know, people were protesting about the tapes that the cops wouldn't release. Well, we have that tape here with us today, and while Dr. Jeffries comes on, just run that tape and we'll be right back at you, all right?
About 37, you took one up top. And one second. 10 4 One start for us is nothing disturbance for shoebox, correction black and white funeral, parking lot, 8700 Jeffries, Wells Fargo. We don't third party, black no for that's right near corridor, black vehicle. He was still making probably.
Handcuff.
Legacy
He's gripping his hand. Gripping his hand.
Back up! I got right gun.
Back up.
Back up!
You on? Huh? I don't know. Hey, somebody get my bag and start getting some equipment.
Where's your bag?
You good? Just take it back to my trunk.
You good?
I'm good. Get some gloves. We need to hold the wound.
As you see, very quick. It's only, not even 2 minutes long. Now, all that protesting and the cops finally, they were holding this back. If you saw it, this is in the car cam, you could see him out of the corner, backing up out of the car. Now, before he got out of the car, they're saying, drop the gun, drop the gun. How could you see the gun if he's in the car? I mean, it makes no sense. They said drop the gun 11 times. All right? Now, we can obviously see he gets out of the car. You could barely see it there, but I've seen it in slow motion. And he stands up, and I've seen another shot where he supposedly had it looked like an ankle holster on his ankle. But the gun wasn't in his hand. And this is a gun-carrying state. So possibly, but then I heard today that in 2015 his wife had an order of protection against him about having a gun. So justification for murder, no. But they have a history of other problems, so we have complications here.
There is a video of a retired black police sergeant, a woman, and she's giving her assessment of that situation.
Okay.
They were there for an entirely different reason, to serve a warrant on somebody. Right. And her critical analysis of that situation is far better than what I could convey, but it does exist for people to pull up on Google. Right. Just so happens that particular piece about Scott and the brother in Tulsa, that's the front page of the Final Call newspaper dated October 4th. And it's page 2, page 3, the whole issue. Minister Farrakhan calls a state of emergency a call to action for us to come together and save ourselves. At the same time, before we go to Dr. Jeffries, there is a UN report that just came out Tuesday. U.S. owes black people reparations over slavery and has not confronted its history of racial terrorism. It says that black people are facing a human rights crisis in America. This is a UN report that just came out. And that is what we're dealing with. We're facing a crisis of human rights crisis in America. And this is an assessment made by people outside of ourselves. Okay. And this is the call again for us to come together to save ourselves.
Well, one of the reason Leroy and I were talking about, we're raised in the same scene, we're days apart and birthdays, and we were like raised in the same hood, in the neighborhood. And we came up in high school days with one of our best friends was Wayne Rice, who later on went on to become the first black on television with
Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds.
Yes.
Hawk.
The Hawk.
Okay.
All right? So we were discussing how we were raised. Of course, you were out in New Jersey, but you still benefit by that. I mean, we considered that Mississippi back in those days. You went across the George Washington Bridge and you were in Mississippi. I mean, I remember we couldn't go to Palisade Amusement Park when I was a kid. You couldn't go to the pool.
That's right.
I mean, New Jersey was a trip, and it still is. Look what's happened to, your governor. But that's a pun. But naturally, you came up and you were head of the Jewish fraternity in college. So.
That was when I was in college.
Yeah.
But before that, I was in segregated New Jersey. We couldn't go to certain amusement parks, the same thing. Swimming pool was open on Thursday for us.
On Thursday?
But that's the only day, and it was so crowded we couldn't do no swimming.
You could go to Palisade Amusement Park?
No, I'm talking about in Newark, New Jersey.
Oh, Newark.
The parks that we had available were not available for us every day. So we have to deal with the reality. America has a history, and if we don't understand the history, then we are, unfortunately, we're failing to understand our circumstance. And the history has been a history of dehumanizing African peoples, a process of dehumanization. And no matter what they do to make corrections or adjustments, that process still is fundamentally there. One of our great sisters understood this, Dr. Shashi McIntyre. And she knew the minister, Farrakhan, from the Boston area, and her husband, great musician, et cetera. Shashi left us with a legacy. She was one of our professors of African studies. She wrote a book called Criminalizing a Race. That these incidents that we now see because we have the technology to take the pictures, she's saying this is the foundation of the nation. The nation was built on criminalizing black people, particularly black men. And from the very beginning, the prison systems and incarceration was a part of this nation. We need to begin to understand that. Even when we got our so-called civil rights to make us a part of America, the 13th Amendment ending slavery, 14th Amendment giving us citizenship rights, 15th Amendment giving us the vote. We never got all those things. The 13th Amendment ending slavery had a clause that allowed for the prison system to be put in place. After enslavement, the three of us on a corner talking about what's happening, we could be arrested for loitering and could be put in jail. So we have to see the criminalization of our race is not something you could say that Clinton started in the 90s or Nixon started in the 70s. It's a part and parcel of what is America. And we have to begin to understand that and deal with that.
What do you think would happen if Trump became president?
Well, we've had a lot of Trumps over the years, including the first one, George Washington, and then you had a couple
Trump
of others.
Is out there.
Well,
he's out.
George Washington was out there too, and Jefferson. They put in place a enslavement system that we started off with this nation with, and so let's not just leave it on Trump. Let's put it on all of them because they've maintained the system.
Century, though. The 21st century, and we're the liberal country of the planet, supposedly.
We've never been the liberal country of the planet, and so that's why the reality of what America is. No, that's the myth and the legend.
God bless
the reality,
America.
The ideal is equality. The reality was enslavement, dehumanization, and so that's what we have to understand is what we've got to deal with.
Well.
And whoever gets in place, including Hillary Clinton, we've got to have force power. We've got to have demands. We have to make our voices heard. We can't accept the fact that we just have a black face in place or a white face in place who happens to be a woman and expect miracles to happen. Frederick Douglass said it best, if there is no struggle, there's no progress.
But don't we struggle most among ourselves?
We've been
and how
programmed.
we treat our leaders? I ran Malcolm on Plymouth Rock. You know when he says the rock fell on us?
Right.
You ever see that piece? Malcolm's a trip.
But before there was Plymouth Rock, you had Jamestown. Plymouth Rock is 1620. Jamestown is 1607. And white folks tried to establish a colony to make it work, and they couldn't. The Native Americans got tired of them and turned their backs on them. So the Jamestown colony in Virginia was going into cannibalism until on the horizon came a Dutch man of war in 1619 with 20 Africans in it. And those 20 Africans became the savior of the Jamestown colony. How come that ain't in the damn history books? We're just opening up a big museum down there in Washington, which is wonderful. But how come the real deal is not in place? That black folk have been the savior of this nation. Civil War, they needed the black troops. 200,000+ black sailors and black soldiers fought to save the nation. And our reward was a new type of enslavement. And after World War I and World War II, in World War I, they didn't even want to have the black soldier. They didn't want to arm us. But the French said, our black people are saving us. If you don't want your blacks and you don't have sense enough to use them, we'll take them. Black men fought in World War I in the French army with French regimental forms, French uniforms, French arms. And they were so valiant that when the victory parade took place up Fifth Avenue, at the head of it were black troops with French regimental forms. And they paraded right past 110th Street into Harlem. That's our history. And we got to understand it. Don't get depressed because we've been victorious in struggling.
Well, you know, that's the past. I'll update ourselves to the 21st century and Trump running for president.
Trump has created for you and I and everybody else a paralysis of analysis, focusing on an individual and not seeing the system that he's being produced by. Hey, he's not producing himself.
But, you know, you get the Republicans claiming that, you know, he's not worthy of his position. And I mean, they put him in there, their racist attitudes and...
Because it is not him, it's the system. They want a system that profits
so they're
on
talking
our
about
destruction.
Hillary too.
Hillary is not the system, he's not the system. And if you miss the point that one man does not run America.
Just like
one
Obama
woman does not run America. One black man certainly does not run America. We were deluded into thinking that we could elect somebody to change the system and run the system.
Well, why are we so hard on the man?
Because they programmed our minds. In fact, they programmed our brain. And it's not just Willie Lynch. They programmed it before Willie Lynch.
I want to run this piece, you know, from Farrakhan. Now, my whole
Minister Farrakhan will be coming to the East Coast. He'll be in Atlanta on the October the 16th, I believe. That's part of my homeland. I'll be going down there. That's my father's family. And then he'll be coming back to New Jersey to join Ron Daniels and the others that are having the State of the Black World activity for 5 days, November the 16th to the 20th in Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah.
He will be a major presenter, and he'll be summarizing the things, but there'll be a lot of us that are there. So
I'm going to come out and try and stream a lot of that stuff.
But so we're talking about the system.
Okay.
We're not just talking about an individual. An individual could have a car accident, but the system is still going to be there. He can have a stroke, but the system is still going to be there.
That this black man that we've had in office for 8 years deserves more respect than he's getting. And it's, I played Malcolm in the beginning because there was a demise of Malcolm and how he was shot down. Of course, it was but I'm talking about how we fight amongst each other and how we kill each other.
Yeah, but master that. But if you don't master the larger system, no matter what happened to Malcolm, Malcolm was a threat to this nation. Right. Malcolm was a threat internationally. And so the nation had nothing to do with the poisoning of Malcolm in Cairo. The nation had nothing to do with telling France, you can't have him land here. France did not want him to land there because they knew that his death had been put out there already. So that France said, no, you got to keep on going on to New York. So let's look at the larger system. Let's not accept the
But if there hadn't been a separation between him and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he might have survived.
Yes, but I'm saying look at the larger system. Kennedy was taken out. It wasn't a Nation of Islam that had anything to do with that. And then Kennedy's brother was taken out. It wasn't a Nation of Islam that had anything to do with that. Look at the system. Hey, systems analysis. And then we're on our way.
All right. I just want to play Farrakhan talking about Obama.
Minister Farrakhan and Obama, I'm sure they were both in Chicago. I'm sure that...
How we treat each other. All right? Play that piece for me.
Party a long time. Answer me. What did you get? You got a president. He's worried about his legacy. Well, you want Hillary to get in to protect your legacy because Trump said the minute he get in, he's going to reverse the Affordable Care Act, because that's your signature achievement. To show you how hateful the enemy is, he hates that you achieved what you did achieve. So he said, I'm going to tear it up when I get in. So he don't want his legacy destroyed. Mr. President, let the man do if he get in what he wants. Because he's not destroying your legacy. If your legacy is bound up in an Affordable Care Act that only affects a few million people, and they're trying to make it really difficult for those of us who signed up, that's not your legacy. But I just want to tell you, Mr. President, you from Chicago and so am I. I go out in the street with the people. I visited the worst neighborhoods. I talked to the gangs. And while I was out there talking to them, they said, you know, Farrakhan, the president ain't never come. Could you get him to come and look after us? There's your legacy, Mr. President. It's in the street with your suffering people, Mr. President. And if you can't go and see about them, then don't worry about your legacy. Because the white people that you've served so well, they'll preserve your legacy. The hell they will. But you didn't earn your legacy with us. We put you there. You fought for the rights of gay people. You fought for the rights of this people and that people. You fight for Israel. Your people are suffering and dying in the streets. That's where your legacy is. Now you failed to do what should have been done. But it's never too late. You, like Jimmy Carter, can be a better president after you leave the restrictions of your White House and come on back to the hood and start organizing like you did. And with your influence all over the world, let's make a new and better people. And from us, if it's Allah's will, we can make a new and better America. Thank you for listening, and may Allah bless you as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Hellfire, hellfire.
Systems analysis. Systems analysis.
Hey. I got a beef with Farrakhan.
Systems analysis.
I got a real beef with Farrakhan, you know. I got a beef with that one.
But you're not supposed to put it...
I'm talking about how we treat our leaders. I'm talking about how we treat... I started off with Malcolm.
Yes.
Right? Now, you know where I'm coming from. Yeah. Now, him and Malcolm were rivals back in Malcolm's day.
No, they were partners.
No.
They were brothers.
Come on.
They were brothers.
Come on, I was there.
Malcolm was Minister Lewis X's teacher.
Amen.
He was his
he
teacher.
not envious and jealous of the man?
Who? How?
Was not Farrakhan jealous of Malcolm?
We asked Minister
How we
Farrakhan.
treat our leaders.
Oh, come on, brother. I was there on the outside.
I don't appreciate him treating them.
No, I was there
the way he just did.
I was there on the outside. I was not in the nation at that time.
Really?
When I come
Malcolm
in,
was killed? Okay.
I didn't go to the mosque because I thought they wouldn't let Catholics in. That's why I didn't go to the mosque. until a friend of mine and his wife,
That's right.
Brother Joel, said he had been to the mosque. I said,
Tall Joel?
no, Joel Washington. Hassan Washington.
Hassan Washington.
If you know Hassan.
Yes.
Anyway, his brother, we were best friends coming up. Hassan was best friends with my older brother coming up. So we lived around the corner from one another. So he was relating how he had been to the mosque and heard this lecture on the breakdown of the dollar. I said, they let you in?
Yeah. They let you in.
So he said, yeah. I said, they let you? Because we came up Catholics. Resurrection, the same church as Father Lucas.
Yes.
Right?
Oh,
Anyway,
wow.
the bottom line is that on the outside, as a nationalist, I may have thought the same thing that you thought. But when I came into the nation, I got a different understanding of a whole lot of things. So some things I can talk on, some things I won't talk on. But the fact of the matter is that Minister Farrakhan, Minister Lewis X, at that time.
Right.
You see, you belong to an organization. You belong to an organization, and that's a whole different thing than being, quote, friends with somebody who goes against the nation or the principles or the leadership of the nation. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, all I knew is that
Why do you call Malcolm a traitor?
All I know.
Why do you call Malcolm a traitor?
Well, you're in an organization, but I'm not going to go into that. You're in an organization. Outside the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X was indeed a champion. Malcolm X was talking that which he was motivated to talk from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
The nation would not have been what it was if it hadn't been for Malcolm. Malcolm built the nation.
No.
Not
No. Malcolm was one of the stars. Malcolm was one of the stars in the Nation of Islam. I'm not here to argue that. I would be here to give you clarity on. But he was one of the stars. Now
he was the star.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion. Now, when you talk about a leader, you're talking about someone who is one of us. Malcolm was one of us. He spoke to us. He respected us. He heard us.
Right.
All right? And when he said something, we could follow that particular energy.
Okay.
Minister Lewis X comes up, same pattern, same thing, speaks to us, reflects us, champions us, and speaks in behalf of us and defends us. He comes out of the same mold, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings. This is what people, what Brother Jeffries, Dr. Jeffries was just saying. He said, don't look at the individual, look at the system. The Nation of Islam is an organization that produces stars, stars from the standpoint who stand up for their people. Who you go to St. Louis, you go to Baltimore, you go to Philadelphia, and those ministers in other parts, those ministers they're not half-stepping. They stand out, but they're not sanctioned by the system, so you and I don't know them beyond myself being in the Nation of Islam and being exposed to them. So, no, the Nation of Islam, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I said in another program, he's the most visible individual. His impact is here.
Okay.
When you talk about black, the term black, when we were coming up, we were Negroes, coloreds, and Portuguese, all right? You had a certain complexion, you had Portuguese or Indian. No, Malcolm came with a black thing. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad came with a black thing, and it's the knowledge of who we are. You said something, Brother Jeffries, of the mythology, the white mythology, the mythology of white supremacy. I'm putting in those. They had to create a superior image as it relates to us because we are not inferior. Black people are not inferior, and when we get that notion to stop begging them, stop going to them for justice that we're not going to get from them, and combine and come together as a unit, we don't have to do anything but come together as a unit. Malcolm, he was talking about nationalism would free us. Nationalism for black people is thinking as a group. Thinking as a group. Winston is my brother. Graham is my brother. Jeffries is my brother. the sisters in the control room, they're our sisters, not individuals. We're all in the same group, and that's what the brutality and the oppression is forcing us to see. The sister who called the police to help her brother in San Diego. Oh. The same thing happened on Morningside Avenue with the Bar family. Yeah. They called 911 for her son.
Yeah, we had.
And that story, that's
yeah, we're going to tell that story.
So,
all right, what about the take of Farrakhan on Obama, which
let me say this real quick. WLIB, Minister Farrakhan, Brother Wayne and I, we negotiated time on WLIB for the Sunday lectures from the mosque to be on live. So you be at home, you turn on, and you would hear Minister Farrakhan blasting on Sunday afternoon. Now, we had a relationship with the management, the administrators at WLIB, and it was always it was contentious. It was friction at times, because as they began to grow, and from my perspective, and got more I'll put it this way, they got white advertisers. Right. Those white advertisers expressed displeasure with the minister being on Sunday. Right. All right? So there was always that push to get us off the air from our original contract. Years later, after '75, Minister Farrakhan is in Chicago. I'm still in New York. I happened to talk to one of the brothers that we would deal with. He said, Minister Farrakhan is missed. He'd never said this before. I said, what do you mean he's missed? He said, we're sorry that he's not here. I said, what do you mean? He said, because he would keep black politicians honest. I said, what do you mean by that? Because I didn't know what he was talking about. He said, the black politicians in New York would fear that on a Sunday, Minister Farrakhan would call them out.
So this is calling President
That's
Obama
calling them out. When I had a show on a radio station, people came to me and they would say periodically, sisters,
I don't feel he's justified in calling Obama
Well,
out
you may not
like
feel that way. What happens is that when I was called out for not having, this is black women talking to me, you don't have no women on. I wasn't even conscious that I didn't have women guests. I'm just going after information. When they told me that, what happened? I got some female guests.
Yeah, we have to do that here. Oh, we have.
We do have.
What happens there, he says, hey, President, you still have time. You still have time to do more while you're in that position.
Well, but the important point that he
everybody
made,
here. Let me finish this.
Okay, it's your show. You can
I just want to get my point across.
Okay.
I have a beef with each of you about how you treat.
So be prepared.
No.
Speak for yourself. Don't speak for me.
No, wait a minute. I told I have a beef with every one of you and how you all talk about Obama.
There's nothing wrong with being right in your criticism and analysis if it is. If it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, whack, whack, it's a duck.
That's right.
Well, you blame him for...
I don't blame him for nothing other than what he's done that should not have been done.
Right.
Whatever that may be.
And what Minister Farrakhan was saying,
and that goes for you and me and everybody else.
He still has time to do what he can do, and he will have time after the presidency when the constraints will be taken off
no matter what Farrakhan said. He was doing it before he became president. No. He was a community community organizer?
We're not talking about community organization. We're going way beyond that. Okay. He, as a powerful figure in the world, he can now have an African agenda, a black people's agenda, without worrying about everybody else's agenda. That's what people are saying.
Got the African Museum.
You've taken care of everything. Well, even in the African Museum, I would have rewritten his speech. You can't be in the African Museum in the shadow of the Washington Monument and not mention it. You can't be in the Washington Museum and look down on the mall and see a pillared temple where Lincoln is sitting like a pharaoh and not mention the legacy of. You can't be in the museum and know that Banneker laid out the whole of Washington. And so he is constrained. Once he leaves the position, he can be a black man. And I'll help him be one.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yes.
That's what I want to hear. See, now Farrakhan can help him, and Dr. J.
Well,
Let's give the man a hand.
Okay.
Like you said, he comes from Chicago.
All right?
That's right.
This isn't
Let's
something
give the
new
man
to
a
him.
hand.
Yes.
That's
Barack
what we
Obama
should
is
give
from
him
Chicago.
applause for
That's right.
surviving this crap he's going through for the last 8 years.
Right, but let's not give him a pass.
Pass? What could he do? He did as best he could. With the damn crackers in
But
there.
the best he could is that he was constrained by the system. When he leaves, he's still going to be constrained by the system because he knows all the codes, he knows all of this and that. But let's try to say that.
You don't think he was threatened?
Here's the point that I want.
You think if he had came out the
Here's
wrong
the
way,
point that I want to make.
his family
You
might have
opened
disappeared?
up a museum, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and now it's going to raise questions. Let the questions be raised.
Okay.
This nation was not founded by people interested in freedom, justice, and equality. It was founded by slave owners, every single one of them, including Benjamin Franklin. This nation has stolen the legacy of African peoples and then gave us nothing. We're dehumanized when we are the human family. Now that you have a chance, take the constraints off. Your wife wants to take them off.
Right.
You can feel her spirit and saying, I was in the White House, but do you know what I had to go through? We know what you had to go through because they watched you on TV and they were mad that your arms were out, that you were healthy. Not that you went through Princeton and got the type of degree that the white boy gets, and then you went to Harvard and got a law degree before your husband, and you were told to stay in the kitchen and raise your children. So hopefully she can be a queen mother in the African tradition, and he can be.
Amen. Amen, brother.
It's interesting.
That's my girl.
When she was at the college last week, the students were yelling 4 more years. She went there to speak on behalf of Hillary. The students were screaming 4 more years. They weren't screaming for Hillary. They were screaming for Obama. You see, and if Michelle was running, forget
there you go.
Forget it. If Michelle was, it'd be no contest. It'd be no contest. Not at all.
Well, they're running as a family. Hopefully, they'll have a post-presidency great experience.
And things you said about, don't you believe that he was threatened? Yes.
Okay.
When the guys jump over the fence,
man,
and they sleeping in his bed, he come in the room. Who are you? Right?
How do you get to the second floor in the White House? You punch out a Secret Service agent. You get to the second floor, and a black woman in her car crashed her car into the bollards and was gunned down at the curb.
That's why I don't see Farrakhan talking to
Minister Farrakhan has said publicly, he said, this is our brother.
What the brother's going
he said, this is our brother, we love him.
Okay.
We love him.
He said about Malcolm,
and we do respect.
And he's saying there's life
he said
after
the same
the
thing
presidency.
about Malcolm, too.
There's life after the presidency. Now you're all playing out. You're giving us a paralysis analysis. We want family. We got to have a systems analysis.
Stay tuned for
God has already blessed you. Raise that black blessing up. He's already blessed you. Raise that
black power.
Michelle for president. God bless you, brother.
Oh, sweat. Winston is